Good evening. I'm Marion Strom, Chair of the PHSS Foundation, and I welcome you all to the 22nd Annual Laudable Londoners. On the heels of our successful virtual event last year, and considering the continuing challenges of this dastardly COVID pandemic, we thought we'd do it again. I would ask you at home who are on Zoom to please mute yourself and also encourage you to engage in the chat box. Our ticket sales reflect your generosity and support of our organization, in addition to being a fabulous tribute to our honoree. We have about 80 households joining us virtually tonight, and this year we are able to host 21 guests here at Community Place. I would also like to thank Larry Minnie for his ongoing sponsorship of this event. We have many familiar faces joining us tonight, but for those who may not know us yet, PHSS is a nonprofit organization that provides unique and flexible supports and services so that people with complex medical, physical, and/or developmental needs can live the life they choose as part of the community. Many of the people we support have very complex needs, including people who are ventilator dependent and/or medically fragile, who would otherwise be living in the hospital. Supporting more than 250 individuals in over 60 locations throughout southwestern Ontario, as well as our latest and second location in Ottawa, PHSS provides 24 hours residential supports, day and overnight respite, recreational programs, specialized complex medical care, and intensive behavioral supports. We also support individuals living at home with their families. I'd like now to share a short video that was made for our 30-year anniversary that shows many of our milestones over the last 33 years. It is my pleasure to introduce a great friend of PHSS and the first Laudable Londoner, Bill Brady, as our MC for this evening.
Thank you for that spontaneous outburst. This is a special night. I've been doing it for 22 years. You'd think I'd get it right soon, wouldn't you? Well, I missed 2 years. Brian Dunn reminded me. I missed 2 years. 1 year I was away somewhere, and the other year I was having a heart attack instead of being here or there. We've been in a lot of locations. I guess I fell for Participation House and all it did before I became it's hard being laudable. I mean, you're going to have to keep it up, Jill. You can't just stop tomorrow being laudable. There's a 9-year plan to be laudable. But I fell in love with the concept of Participation House. I think of the people that are served as sort of the forgotten members of our community, but they are members of our community. They're our neighbors. I hope they're our friends, and I know they're being cared for. But at last, when this organization came along, we elevated their existence from I was going to say the possibility, but the threat of going into an institution where they would become even more anonymous and lost into a complicated system that didn't often work. So Participation House Support Services has done an extraordinary job. And I was looking at the growth pattern. That's remarkable, the fact that how it's growing to serve even more people. Well, I'm glad I'm here. A lot of you encouraged me to leave my mask on, and I was offended by that. The masks are difficult. I mean, I know they're difficult for everybody, but you don't know who you're talking to. I came in here tonight, people said, "Well, I had no idea who they were." And I had to ask them, and then they'll slip their masks down a bit so you can figure, and then the trouble comes when you still don't know who they are. I've said hello to people I don't know, and I've ignored people I do know, but the mask is a great discipline. And tonight, first of all, let me say that when you get in a position like I have right now, you get an audience at home, sort of a captive audience. Although if you were here in person, we could see you sneak out, but we don't know what you're doing. I mean, some of you will want to leave and go to the powder room. Please put your hand up if that becomes an emergency, and we'll wait for you. But this responsibility with doing this, because if you can be wrong by, for example, I wrote a book recently, and for me to talk about that in the stores where it's available would be tacky. It happens to be a very good book, and that's just not my opinion. Yeah, it pretty well is, yeah. But it happened during the pandemic, that long, hot summer last year. I was really bored. Our golf course was closed. So I wrote a book that I wanted to give a modest title to. So I called it, "It's All About Me." And it is. And it talks about my years at the Free Press with some of the wonderful people who are here. And my career, it's a real bargain. If you buy it soon at a bookstore, it will enhance my pension. And it'll soon be on Amazon at around $3, which kind of breaks your heart when you see that. It's good because I get to talk about the recipient tonight, Jill Wilcox, someone I've known for quite a few years. We're in the same building for a long time. And before Jill, I wrote a food column for the Free Press for 10 years called Bill of Fare. Some clever person downstairs in the promotion department said, "His name's Bill, so why don't we call it Bill of Fare?" So clever. And it was pretty good. And it lasted 10 years. And this is how I got fired. I'm in this, my office is here. The guy who wrote the letters below me, and I get a letter at home, "Dear Mr. Brady." Very formal. We're no longer going to print that supplement to the Free Press, so you're toast. Not a phone call. Not even going, and they never took anybody out to lunch, did they? I mean, so let me just say something about Jill Wilcox. She got a wonderful store downtown that keeps winning awards, as it should. Jill's Table as it's a kitchen store, but she sells everything else. And like most merchants, I'm sure she suffered greatly during the months, seemed like years of closing, but she's bouncing back. And as she told me tonight, everybody's cooking now. Everybody wants to bake, even people that don't do it very well, but they're out there doing it. And I think that's remarkable. And Jill has for more than 40 years been a celebrated food columnist for the London Free Press. But she does far more than that, and has done far more than that. She formed a foundation, and she started that in 2012, and she provides funding for food-related education projects that support women and children. Her efforts have benefited many, many worthwhile causes, including investing in children, youth opportunities, growing ships, Woody and Easter Seal Camp, the Marymount Children's Center, Fanshawe College, Mission Services. All of this takes time and a lot of energy and input and skill. She's volunteer, the most precious commodity that any country, city, town, or village can have is its volunteer force. And Jill sets a benchmark for others in that regard. And besides all her volunteering stuff, she continues to do cooking classes and food tours. If you were lucky, you could go to France, Italy, or Portugal. And of course, that ended because of the pandemic. And she's not doing well getting members to go to the Jill Wilcox next culinary tour of Owen Sound and Meaford. It has not been a big draw. She also is a board member of the London Chamber and a member of the Committee for the Business Cares Food Drive. That's a remarkable initiative every year. Somehow we manage to not think about those families that are going hungry. Well, Jill and I are thinking about the next recipe, perhaps. People are thinking about the next meal. What will we have? What have we got? We don't have much. And the food bank is there for them. And Jill works hard to give her talent and skills to that annual drive. She's a woman of excellence, but I've known that for quite some time. She married well. Bogart is a journalist. And when I first came to meet him, someone said, well, you got to say hello to Bogey. And I thought, he's here? I thought he died and he died by getting into a dumbwaiter. Did you know that? Yeah, well, his wife, wasn't that Lauren Bacall? Yeah, she said that because he was so ill, he had to use a dumbwaiter to go between floors, and he bought it. I don't know, between floors, I guess. But this Bogart's still with us, and like me, got told by the Free Press one day, you don't need to come back tomorrow if you don't want to. Is there something else you can do? Is there a place you can go? Actually, leaving the London Free Press is what a lot of us did, except I got to stay with the parent company. I spent many years with the Blackburn Group. Long ago, I recognized the fact that not everybody who does things prominently in the public are gifted, but Jill's one of those people that can do it all. She can teach cooking. She can help you understand more about food and nutritional value. And then she does so and helps other people at the same time. You shouldn't get this award without answering some tough questions. If you're going to be laudable, Jill, I have a question for you that I've thought about a long time, because it's important that I get an answer, and it's serious stuff. This is not lighthearted. Here's my question. In your oatmeal apple cake, can I use instant oatmeal instead of the large flakes? I'm not big on those large flakes. Would it be okay to use the instant? Absolutely. Okay. The little chocolate thing you told us about, the little dishes, that you do in your microwave. People who like chocolate will like that. Jill Wilcox has done so much. Now, another thing you should know about her, you'd think that if she snacked at all, she would snack. I could picture her with foie gras on a stick, for example. But what does she snack on? It is such an honor to be here to honor someone as a Laudable Londoners. The award is given to people who make a contribution, who contribute to their community, who have something to say about the well-being of the other people with whom they live. And Jill, like most of us, is a committed volunteer who believes in a process that's being done so expertly by the ever-growing Participation House Support Services and their foundation. And I'm going to now call upon some people to speak on behalf about Jill. First, from the Legislative Assembly of Ontario, member of the Provincial Parliament, Jeff Urick. Mr. Urick, it's your turn now.
Thanks very much. And as unpredictable as the pandemic has been, I didn't expect to be in downtown Toronto tonight. So I have just made my way, and I haven't made my way to my house yet. So you're getting me live on the street in Toronto to bring greetings on behalf of the Ontario government. I want to first of all thank Participation House for continuing to put on a great event. This is the 22nd annual edition. I do have to say, I deal with a lot of organizations through my office, and a lot of people here know out in the community, but not once have I ever heard no from Participation House. It's been, how do we figure out this problem? So I commend Participation House, all the staff, all the volunteers who make this possible for the people of the community. Same time, I'm very proud to have the opportunity to talk about Jill and her contributions. It's very clear from the description, and Bill, you gave a great description of her recognition tonight. It's very well deserved. Very impressive career that has shown us the experience of giving back to the community, but also has shown us great culinary experiences and how to live life through food. So I just want to take this opportunity for this Laudable Londoner to congratulate Jill on being such a great person to our community. I want to take the opportunity to thank her. The biggest gift she's ever given to Londoners is her time, and that's something we can never ever give back. That's something that is never increasing. We only have a short amount of time on this earth, and it's the fact that she has stepped forward and given her time to the people of London is tremendous. So on behalf of the people of Ontario, I want to congratulate Jill for her impressive personality or impressive giving to this community. And again, to thank Participation House for allowing me to be part of this program. And from downtown Toronto, have a great night.
Thank you, Mr. Yurt. Good to hear from you, sir. And now we have a videotape. The mayor is going to talk to you, but he's not here, as you can see. And I wondered where he was, and I've heard that he took a night off. He's over in Ward 1 trying to slip vaccine into that guy's cocoa. It's pretty scary stuff. And so I'd like to introduce the Mayor of London, His Worship Ed Holder.
On behalf of City Council, welcome to the 22nd Annual Salute to Laudable Londoners. This is a true celebration of our community. It recognizes many exceptional philanthropists and givers within London and acknowledges their contributions in so many areas of our community. Tonight, it provides an opportunity to pay tribute to a truly laudable Londoner, Jill Wilcox. Jill's an example of great leadership. She's a past board member of the London Chamber of Commerce and member of the organizing committee for the Business Cares Food Drive. Jill's an entrepreneur. She launched her famous Jill's Table, now in its 22nd year of business. Amazing. She's not only an active business leader, but a philanthropist as well. In 2012, She started the Jill Wilcox Foundation to grant funding to food-related and education projects that support women and children in need. So Jill, thanks. Thanks for your tremendous contributions to our city, because your efforts have benefited many local organizations and Londoners. Your passion for giving is so exceptional. Your accomplishments are a testament to your deep commitment to our great city, and this recognition tonight, well, it's so richly deserved. Let me also extend heartfelt thanks to Participation House for your continued recognition of London's leaders and the positive impact the foundation has on London. Thank you to everyone for attending tonight to help honor our friend Jill Wilcox as this year's Laudable Londoner. And on behalf of London City Council, again, congratulations, Jill, and to all of you, a wonderful, wonderful evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate your comments about Jill. I should have mentioned that she and Tom have 5 children, 1 grandchild, and a large extended family. We tried to invite her friends to come and talk about her, but it would take a larger venue than this to accommodate the people who love and respect this extraordinary woman who has done so much for her community and has made us all think about the value of food. And these days, that's so very, very important. I'd now like to call upon a former colleague of Jill's, and she worked in the same building as me, but didn't talk much to me because we were in the radio business, and the journalists think, you know, there's something wrong with those guys up there. There's odd people. And a lot of them were. I wasn't, but a lot of them were. And so I'm going to call now upon someone who's a member of the board. She had a long and distinguished career at both the Free Press and at the University of Western Ontario, and I'm happy to introduce Helen. Come on, Helen.
Well, I have to say how pleased I am to be here tonight to honor someone I consider a very close friend, Jill Wilcox, and an amazing woman in the city. As somebody who is much more skilled at making reservations and holding dinner parties, I am always interested in how, when I name drop that Jill's coming to dinner, Jill and Tom, the look on people's face, it's usually astonishment. And that's because that most people who know Jill know her as the author of multiple cookbooks, the newspaper columnist, the entrepreneur who gave London one of the finest specialty food stores in the country. Her accomplishments are truly remarkable, and it can make her a little intimidating. But the reason I'm comfortable in having her at my dinner table and usually working side by side with me to make sure there is a dinner to put on the table is because I know a whole other different side of Jill. There are many words that are used to describe Jill. She's intelligent, she's kind, she's considerate, she's a role model, she's thoughtful. And I think you'll hear repeatedly why those things are all and more true about her. The word I'd like to use, however, tonight is brave. Brave's not the word I thought of when I first met her at the press club 30 years ago. Back then, I saw her as kind and friendly and just wanted to know more about her. To truly appreciate someone, though, you have to kind of know their roots. And as I got to know Jill more and more, I sat and I was thinking about that as preparing tonight's remarks. I was thinking, what made Jill so special? Why is she being able to do so much? And I think it is because she is so brave. It's important to know her roots. And she grew up in a modest family. Her father was the bartender at the press club, and her mother worked 2 days at Eaton's. They were good people living a modest life and expecting that Jill would have much the same kind of modest life, I think. And it takes determination and it takes a lot of courage for a young woman to decide she was going to create her own path. Jill's first plane trip is an example of how she does things. She by herself got on a plane and flew across the world to Australia to meet a friend. She worked 3 jobs in order to afford that trip. Back in London, Jill was hired at the Free Press by a clerk as a clerk stenographer to the editorial page editor. But within a few years, Jill had moved up the hall and was working in the publisher's area where she was indispensable. Her in-depth knowledge of food and her understanding of what people need to know about food made her a staple on the food pages at the Free Press. But today she is seen and read from across the country through the Postmedia network. When Jill decided to leave the security of a full-time job and the high profile she had, there were people who thought she was making a mistake. After all, Jill does not have, or didn't have at the time, a formal business background. And the only other business at the store that was close to what she envisioned doing, had closed when the owners retired. But Jill, as I said, was brave, and she's also incredibly determined. She also has an incredible thirst for learning that goes beyond all her knowledge about food. While she went straight into the workforce really young, right out of high school, she has since gone and taken many university courses. And while she started off in just straight usual BA route, she's over the years extended herself and stretched in areas of fine arts history and women's studies. Jill's a strong sense of what is right and what is wrong. She has never been afraid to challenge her own beliefs, something many of us don't do very often, but I've seen how she's grown and changed over the years. She doesn't compromise on what she thinks is important, and no matter what the demands are of the store, she has always put her family first, and it's known by everybody who knows Jill knows that. It'd be easier now for her to just rest on her laurels and perhaps talk to customers in the store, get home a little earlier maybe and be with Tom, but that wouldn't be Jill. In that head of hers, she never stops thinking about what's next for the store or how she can push herself intellectually. When she was still dreaming about having this business, she visualized a long, beautiful rustic wood table in the store. And prior to moving in, she went out and commissioned that very pricey, beautiful table. The downside of it was it actually didn't fit in the store. It was too big. So she carved it into 3 pieces, had it carved into 3 pieces, and they are today nestled in the shop. Now, when she goes into that store, I don't think every day she even stops to think about those tables anymore, but I invite you to, because I do think that those tables symbolize Jill's incredible capacity to make things work and to take the challenge and make it a success. So in closing, I'd like to quote an American businesswoman, Anne Marie Sweeney. My brave friend Jill defined success on her own terms, using her own rules and her own values, and she built a life of which anyone would be proud. And she's not done yet. Thank you.
It's unfortunate that I could not get Jill to join my crusade to ban cilantro and kale coming into the country. I thought it'd be a simple thing like an embargo at the border. I've got a ton of cilantro heading to Jill's table. If you stop it right there, and kale, I don't know. I'm in the minority with that one, but I do know one thing for sure. If she gets her kale and cilantro, she'll do something very creative with it that most of you will enjoy. I probably would skip that course, I think, probably. Bryden McFarlane is her brother-in-law. And if you can get your brother-in-law to say the appropriate things about you, you've won big time. So I'm going to ask Bryden if he'd come up, please, and talk about his sister-in-law, young Jill Wilcox.
Appropriate. Down the wrong path here. It's really good to be here. Thank you very much, Participation for hosting this event this evening. It's wonderful to be back. I spent a few years myself in the support service system. I know Brian well and for many years, so it's a real pleasure to be here this evening. It is my great pleasure to be here this evening and to share in this recognition and appreciation of my sister-in-law, Jill Wilcox. I have known Jill since she was a teenager, when she and her family welcomed me into their home and lives. And after her sister Judy had aggressively pursued me to the point of marriage, it has always been my good fortune that this transpired. But just as a very young teenager, Jill exhibited a drive and work ethic far beyond her years. As the much younger of three siblings, she was called upon to be that way, particularly by her dad, Father Wilcox, a giant of a man, both in stature and reputation. He loved Jill dearly, but had some challenging ways of showing that to her, as well as to the rest of his immediate family. Father, as he was affectionately called by everyone, expected a lot of his youngest daughter and made it very clear that he would accept nothing less. Jill never disappointed. At 13, she would ride her bike in the dark to teach macrame classes across the city. Back in the day, and for some reason, everyone wanted to have their schiffelera, ferns, spider plants suspended by intricately braided baler twine in windows and from ceilings and archways throughout their homes. Jill was the master instructor in this craft. When entering high school and following in the footsteps of her older athletic awards-winning brother and sister, where expectations of similar action and achievement on her part were often expressed to her by teachers and coaches, that entry could not have been very easy. To this day, knowing her at best mediocre interest in all things sporting, whenever I have asked her about a game that she may be watching, she always replies the same way. I am watching so I can be with my family and friends, but I am thinking about other things. Jill is always thinking of other things, always thinking, but not just random thoughts or ones that she hopes might take her mind off that 12-year-old rugby game, which her husband Tom had recorded and is excitedly watching for the umpteenth time. But rather her thoughts will go to how some tiny additional ingredient or tweak could improve ever so slightly that already delicious favorite recipe, one often requested by a friend or neighbor. She might be thinking of her next chaperoning trip to Europe, where a possible short, newly included visit to her favorite gelateria or Tuscan fish market might be just the perfect way to end one of the days on the way home with her guests. Always thinking. Will that wine she will be serving with the evening banquet, in fact, now be the best one with her adjusted entree that night? Better get a couple of options on the way back to the castle. Are those beautiful bowls and cutting boards displayed in the best place and manner in her shop to enhance their beauty? Always thinking. But if Jill is always thinking of her family and friends and her beautiful shop and her travels and the ways in which food and flavors are always the glue that binds these things so tightly together, it is the way in which she acts on those thoughts that brings us here tonight. This is a pregnant pause. Jill Wilcox's genuine kindness is something that must be noted and should be emulated. Whether dealing with a distant supplier about a significant purchase or a customer who just wants to bend her ear at the cash register while the line of other customers grows, Jill's kindness, patience, and integrity know no bounds. Jill is a successful business person. She is the first to admit, however, that this success has only been possible with and through the efforts and support of her amazing staff. She fully appreciates how to achieve and maintain success in the business environment, in spite of the obstacles which she has faced, such as the continual reconstruction of the street on which access to her shop depends, and now a global pandemic. Jill's Table remains a cornerstone go-to destination in this community and beyond. Whether taking a bowl of soup to the work crew tearing up King Street and its sidewalks again, or meeting with elected officials and bureaucrats responsible for approving that activity, Jill has never lost the vision of what she wants to achieve. And her many contributions to and throughout the city have made it a better place to be. I have often been in Jill's Table, and more often been fortunate enough to sit at Jill's table. You should not be surprised to know, and I'm pleased to say that these are very much the same. On behalf of my own family, and our common extended family. Congratulations, Jill. Love and best wishes to you for many more years of success.
Thank you, Brian. And now I'm going to call upon another former colleague at the London Free Press who worked with Jill and is very active in the community, spent some time, quite some time in an effective role at the museum at the Forks, and is with us tonight. And will be no doubt top of mind with her about the time she spent with Jill in the same newspaper. Jill cooked and Carol typed and probably still makes recipes. Do you do recipes, Jill? Yes. You can use the small the oats. You don't need to use them. Would you please welcome Carol Teal, please?
Thank you so much, Bill. I'm very honored to be here this evening to celebrate this really important recognition for Jill and with Jill and her family. And Helen and Bill and Bryden have done such a wonderful job. When I saw that my name was last, I went, oh my goodness, they're going to say everything. Well, they haven't said everything. So I hope that you'll let me put a little bit of color into some of the things that have been expressed already. Jill and I have been friends and colleagues for more than 30 years. And while that longevity seems impressive, given so much about our fast turning, overturning world, it really feels like only yesterday that we were in the first location of Jill's award-winning business, Jill's Table, in the tiny corner of Covent Garden Market. We were surrounded by boxes. I just remember boxes and boxes and boxes, and they were all ready to be unpacked and shelved. And I remember that day there was sun pouring in through these very large windows, and there was tiny dust motes flying up from the straw bales that had been put there ready to be used as decor. And all this was happening, and I was watching Jill, and I was watching this very quiet but very fierce determination on her face as she was getting that store ready to open. And I knew at that moment that the adventure that she was about to embark on and the huge risk she was taking was going to pay off. For anyone who's been to Jill's Table, and by the guests that I've seen on the screen and in here, I'm hopeful that all of us have been there. You'll know that the specialty food items and the cookware are all sourced and selected by Jill. She's traveled widely to get a sense of food trends and is often ahead of the curve in her field. And it's been a benefit to Londoners that she brings home to us fantastic products from France and Spain and Italy and Portugal, as Bill was mentioning. The store really is emblematic of Jill's philosophy that anyone can cook through self-learning, trial and error, patience, good ingredients, and embracing cooking as fun, not a chore. But you know, not satisfied with just growing a business, Jill decided about 10 years ago that to start leading culinary tours to the same locations that we just mentioned, because she really believed that there was an opportunity to provide foodies in London with an additional appreciation for the culinary experience they could bring home to their own kitchens if they traveled. And I'll never forget the very first trip. We were in the Languedoc region of France, and I'm following Jill through an open outdoor market, and she's choosing fresh items for the meal that she was going to prepare for that first group trip. I was really lucky. I was her pseudo sous chef, and I remember trying to be the best assistant possible. The instruction, cut the onions finer, please, still rings in my ears as evidence that Jill's finesse in the kitchen means you learn the finer ways of preparing ingredients so they become great food dishes. Jill has an easy and natural way of instilling confidence in your own abilities, as anyone who's taken a cooking class with her knows. But you know, Jill's first business wasn't her hugely successful store. It was a very small enterprise that she called Creative Palette. And it was a business where Jill provided consulting and cooking classes that she taught at Fanshawe College and Anne McCall's Kitchen Shop. She styled food for local photographers and was writing the 2 weekly food columns for the Free Press. And it was during one of those times when we were having a whole bunch of ideas, because as everybody says, Jill is always thinking, but we were riffing off of ideas, and someone threw out, hey, why don't you write a cookbook? And I think we've done that, what, 6 times? I was at the time the publisher of the magazine division at the Blackburn Media Group, and I knew I could help make that happen. And so off we went with loads of help from local chefs, a publishing team, a supportive boss in the London Free Press. And that first cookbook, The Creative Kitchen, was published in 1995. Inside that, she wrote, "Cooking for me is a real joy. Mostly it's the laughter and good times our friends, family, and guests share when they're sitting around our dining room table. Meals don't last 20 minutes in our home. They're often 4 to 5 hour adventures that start with a good appetizer and end with an invitation to the next gathering." As I mentioned, she's gone on to publish 5 more cookbooks. And yes, Bill, I can attribute any sense of my own cooking to having edited well over 500 Jill recipes. All of the accolades that have been mentioned in terms of her awards through the London YMCA and through the Chamber of Commerce, all of that is truly well-deserved, accolades well-deserved. But, you know, Jill wouldn't say those are her greatest achievement. She'd really tell you that the Jill Wilcox Foundation, which was started in 2012, is the legacy she'd like people to remember her for. The foundation, as mentioned, grants funds to food-related and education projects that support women and children in need. And I can remember when we were first starting to talk about that, and she was very sure about what she wanted to be able to support in the community for a lot of reasons to what Helen was talking about earlier. And, you know, I think that so many organizations have benefited from this her personal desire and commitment to give back to the community that has supported her so well. So it's this generosity of spirit, business integrity, and creative innovation that we can all admire in Jill, and why those of us who are friends count her among the finest of people. Congratulations, Jill.
Thank you very much, Carol. When I heard Carol mention the education component that Jill's always been interested in, I think of some of the young people I've met who have been who benefited from someone showing them how to cook, showing them that there's a life for them. Some of them in despair because there's nothing good happened in their life up to now, and then people like Jill take them and explain to them that it's an opportunity for them to be creative and to enjoy preparing food. It gives them a whole new life. So most of us will remember when we think about Jill Wilcox that besides being a culinary expert, she's a very caring educator when it comes to helping young people find careers in the food industry. And we now need to get on to giving her the appropriate tribute. And I'm going to ask the board chair, Marion, to come forward now and look after that. Marion, where'd you go? Oh, there you go. I didn't recognize you with the mask.
I'm also vertically challenged. Okay, so thank you, Bill. We have another brief video to share with you that shows the challenges families face and the impact of moving to a PHSS home has had on Alex and his family.
The care requirement for my brother is extreme. you need to be just on and alert, which is exhausting. I'm Jen Cha. I have a brother who's 2 years younger. His name is Alex. And my brother was born with cerebral palsy, which affected pretty much all of his physical aspects, his speech, his motor, his walking, everything. But he's sharp in the mind, and for most part of his younger years, he was quite independent. But in 2004, he lost his balance and he fell, and he became numb from his chest down. He suffered neurological damage and underwent laminectomy infusion and ended up in a wheelchair needing support with everything ever since. And our whole lives have been upside down since then. We had to modify our home. I had to move into our family home. We had to sell our business. We had to sell our home to move into a accessible condo building, and here we needed to modify it to accommodate my brother's wheelchair. The problem we ran into was that his needs became more complex. With the successive falls that he had, more complications from his health, we just couldn't keep up with the complex care that he needed. Our big worry was life, who knows what's gonna happen? My mom is almost 80, and even myself, like, if anything were to happen to us, what's gonna happen to Alex? It was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. It was unbelievable. It was like, it wasn't just saving my brother, it was saving the whole family. When my brother moves to Participation House, we will be able to enjoy each other like family. That's number one. My brother will have his own life. He will have the world open up to him. So far, it was just us at a home. That's it. And I can also now look after myself, and it's life-changing.
It is now my honor to introduce Chelsea Walters and Ricky Clark, who will lead a toast to our honoree, Jill.
What are you going to say, Chelsea? We would like to say thank you for all you do for in the community.
Here.
Mhm.
Straight.
With your passion.
Like your passion for food. You have started to feel.
Now helping.
Now helping.
Thank you.
Responding to children's life, and I can't.
What else, Chelsea? What else, Chelsea? Cheers. Yes. Cheers to you. Cheers to you. Jill. We can. Thank you enough. We can thank you enough. What? We can thank you enough. What? We can thank you enough. We can thank you enough. I don't know what's going on. I think we are muted. Huh? No, we are not muted. No. Cheers.
To Jill.
Give her the three to Chelsea.
An Inukshuk is a structure of rough stones traditionally used by Inuit people to communicate with travelers along their journey. They are a beacon for those looking for the right direction and a safe passage. They are helpful symbols that demonstrate collaboration between communities. We celebrate Laudable Londoners to acknowledge the feeling of community which such persons exemplify. They represent the Foundation's dream for the future, that more Londoners will understand that acceptance of all its citizens is essential to making this a true community. We present our honorees with an Inukshuk, the symbol that we feel best represents what community work is all about, symbolized by the rippling effect of a pebble in the water. A person's contributions benefit many more people than they first imagined. Congratulations, Jill.
Well, thank you to Ricky and Chelsea for that lovely toast. I'm so glad you were both able to be part of this very special evening. I am truly honored and humbled by this recognition. Thank you to Brian Dunn and everyone at PHSS Foundation. Thank you to the event committee and also to Larry Minnie for your sponsorship tonight. Back in August, when Elizabeth Wasco called and asked if I could have a few minutes for her on a Saturday, and I said, of course, I've known Elizabeth for a very long time. I had no idea that this visit would result in the honor of being chosen as this year's Laudable Londoner. To be honest, Elizabeth, I thought you were coming looking for a donation. And thank you for recognizing a small business owner. Small business is the backbone of our economy and our communities right throughout our country. To receive this honor on behalf of an organization that provides supports housing for individuals in our community with acute complex needs and such care that you give is so incredibly special to me. So this recognition doesn't belong just to me. A very short backstory. I know my previous, thank you, Bryden, Helen, Carol, and Bill for your kind comments. I don't have a lot more to say after everything that you have said. But as mentioned, the youngest of 3 kids, and our parents didn't have a lot of excess material goods or financial resources, but what they did have was an incredible generosity to welcome people into their home any time of the day or night. My mom and dad, I'd like to say, would always find room around the table for one more person. There was no dining room. There was no table. We would enjoy our meals at TV trays in front of the television set so that we could not miss a football game or on Sunday night, the Ed Sullivan Show. In the summer, we would reconvene out in the hibachi grill, wouldn't we, Judy? They taught us to work hard, respect others, and even though they didn't necessarily say it, they really taught us to be kind and compassionate. As mentioned, Dad was a very big, gruff bartender, but with a heart of butter. My mother, quite frankly, was a saint with her ability to show hospitality and kindness under some very taxing situations. I don't know how many times there would be a request to one more toasted Western sandwich for someone who had come in that wanted to drop in. We had some very tough times growing up. There were no extras, no summer camps, and often an awful lot of stress when Dad became very, very ill. That was a real worry. There was no income coming in, and we didn't know sometimes where the groceries would come from. That sense of scarcity, quite frankly, was overwhelming. I was about 5 or 6 years old at that time. But one thing I do recall very, very well was the people that stepped up to help us, often many, many friends. It was something that our parents never forgot. And I think it was my first understanding how food nourishes our bodies, but also our spirits. My family, as I say, never forgot that generosity. And I certainly have never forgotten it. And I have really strived to build my business around that philosophy. I started, as you know, Jill's Table 22 years ago as a small vendor in the new Covent Garden Market. I had no retail experience other than my macrame business, Bill. And but I had a passion for food. And my goal was to provide really great products from the Mediterranean, really great olive oils, vinegars, the best tomatoes, ingredients, and to be able to share recipes. But what I really realize now looking back was it really wasn't those things that I was selling. What I really wanted was to connect people to food and the ability to share with them how to prepare really great food so that they in turn can sit around the table with their families and have a great meal. So that has been quite a journey for me. And as Bill and Helen and Carol mentioned, all the while I've been writing for the Free Press. That's been over 40 years now, and I'm still really thrilled to get emails, people dropping in to tell me how they've enjoyed recipes. And I think of you every time I put cilantro in there. So when I started at the market a year later, a space became available across the road, and it went from 500 square feet to 2,000. So like all small businesses, your first few years, any extra cash flow goes right back into your business, usually in the form of inventory. And but I knew I had to find ways to give back to my community, and I knew maybe it wasn't going to be money, but I knew I could give my energy and my time. We can all do that. That's so very important for us to do in our communities. I've worked very hard to build a successful business, and as the business grew, we added gift baskets, we added cooking classes. When COVID hit, our in-person classes just dried up overnight. But my chef ran, our culinary coordinator and I started virtual classes, which was a really great way to engage more people around the country in different ways to still keep cooking. Our incredibly talented manager, Ruth Ann, orchestrated an e-store so that we could engage and again, keep connected to people and keep them cooking. We worked shoulder to shoulder, often 7 days a week. And I have to joke about the shoulder to shoulder. Ruth Ann's 6'1", I'm 5'5" and shrinking, but she was with me side by side. We did, and the long and the short of it, we did everything we could to keep people cooking. And the kitchen was certainly a real haven for a lot of people during this last couple of years. So as mentioned, the culinary tours 12 years ago, just a great opportunity to take people and their taste buds to other parts of the world, to share other cultures and yet somehow learn some of the great things from those cultures and bring them back into our own homes. We're hoping to maybe resume next year. I've not been on a plane in 2 years, and I will never complain about a lineup at an airport again or about airplane food. I am really looking forward to being able to travel again, as I'm sure everybody is. Owning this small business has really provided me with a great ability to create a platform for contributing to the community. And in the early days, we used to provide a lot of products to ANOVA, which was formerly Women's Community House. So we would give a lot of products that maybe we just had a few of, and they would often sell them at the garage sales or help give them to some of the women in need when they were starting out their houses, their own homes again. I was also really aware of a very significant need in our community, particularly young women and children, young moms, and particularly in terms of food security. So that helped me launch the foundation in 2012, and 100% of all of our monies go toward helping the different organizations. And as mentioned, we've worked with Investing in Children, Mission Services, Boys and Girls Club, YOU, Easter Seals, just to name a few. The message here is that small can have a really big impact. I'm amazed at the organizations we help, how they can run a whole program for just a few $1,000s. Recently, we helped a summer breakfast program, and the organizer reminded me that hunger doesn't take a vacation. And so we're very gratified that we can help these programs, and there is just so much need out there right now. I shared with you that this recognition is not just my own, it belongs to my family, to my team at Jill's Table, the customers who continue to support me every day, and my friends and mentors who have been honored by PHSS before me. You have set such an incredible example of what we can do for our community, and I thank you for that. I also want to thank all of you who joined us on Zoom tonight. I know how many of you are Zoomed out. And many people contacted me that couldn't join us, but said they would make a donation to PHSS. So I'm very grateful for that. And Amanda, thank you for everything, the phone calls and back and forth. You were a great coach to make sure that tonight happened, and you answered all of my questions. So I really thank you for that. And I want to thank my suppliers. Some of them really helped out for the goodie bags that you got tonight. You should have got truffle potato chips. They are sitting on a container in a dock in Montreal. And I have to say, my supplier, Pedro, one of the best sales reps I've ever had, he drove those potato chips down from Montreal so that you could have them tonight. So very grateful again for everybody that contributed tonight. And again, my absolute heartfelt thank you to PHSS Foundation for this incredible honor. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much, Jill. By the way, it's unfortunate that the project that you led, the making macrame cooking pots, did not work on. Here's a person who stepped out of the kitchen into the world of volunteerism. Why? Because she cares. She cares greatly. It has been an honor to honor this extraordinary woman who gives so much of herself to her community. Participation House Support Services has such a valuable and important role in our community, providing dignity and support and a chance for individuals to participate when in past generations they would be written off. Life is of great value, and Participation House attaches that value to everyone of all ages with all difficulties. So thanks for that community service. Jill, you exemplify community service and volunteerism. Congratulations on being this year's Laudable Londoner. To all you at home, thank you for watching. Good night.